Well, good evening, everybody. This is Apostle Crystal Lee. I'm excited to be here with you tonight. We are here for Shavuot. I mean, this is our second Moed, the second appointed time of Yah, and we are here to celebrate this Moed. Uh, it is a time of excitement for me. It's a different time. I don't know if you noticed that the graphics are a little different this time, and it looks like my brother dropped out for a moment, but he'll be back. There he is. Okay. It's a different time for me. Um, the Father's doing something different, and He's shifting some things. He has shifted some things. We will just kind of wait a few moments. We know some things have taken place. We'll kind of do some leading conversation for a moment to let people jump on, but we're not going to wait long. We're going to just move into this, and you'll see it because we have all the way till tomorrow night for Shavuot. But what we're going to do, we're definitely going to look forward to beginning to prepare and to plan more face-to-face events in this season. I believe the Father's pushing us back to that. And the indication that I have that He's pushing us back to that is the fact that I'm in Facebook Penitentiary currently. Out of nowhere, the day before Shavuot, they put me in Facebook Penitentiary. And I'm telling you, this is something that has been prophesied for many years. We've been talking about it. We're at that juncture. We're at that junction where things are starting to happen that the Father already gave us some indication of in the years past. And to me, this is just an indication. It is a sign that the Father is definitely desiring us to move in some directions that He's already declared to us. Good evening, Elder Vicky. That He's declared to us in other seasons. And you have to understand, there are seasons and times for everything. And so sometimes, and I had to deal with this within myself because the enemy almost attempts to use these things as assaults against you. But what you have to recognize as you mature, that there are times and seasons for everything. So the Father begins to announce a thing before He begins to bring it to bear. He begins to announce a thing, to form a thing in you. And we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. But I have my brother, Apostle Ace, on the line, and he's here with me tonight. You know, this is our thing now. We're doing this thing. And it's so exciting to always have him here with me for specifically for the Moeds. We're here, Shavuot 5784, Fires, Mountains, and Men, a Divine Reality. And we're going to talk about some things tonight. I'm not going to try to hold you guys for 5 hours, but we're going to talk until the Father releases me. There are a great many things that I want to say to you, but I can't give it all to you in one setting. And so we'll be talking about a lot of these things over the course of the rest of the year because the Father's unpacking some things for us, and just giving it all to you at one time doesn't do any justice to it. We have to sometimes take our time to digest the things that the Father is saying. And that's something that I had to learn, particularly as a leader, because I want to give it all. When the Father gives it to me, I want to give it all to the people. I want you to get it. I want you to grasp it. I want you to operate in it. But the thing about that is that you have to be able to take the time to have the stomach for what's being given. And a lot of times people have not been fully formed to be able to digest some of the things that are being given. So this is why it's so important to understand times and seasons, because you don't get down on yourself when you don't get it right away. Then you've got to deal with times and seasons, because maturity has everything to do with manifestation. All of these things equally are dynamic according to that manifestation place. And so I'm just excited to have y'all here. It's going to be a little different tonight. We're going to be jumping around from thing to thing, but the fact is, those that have ears, and I think that one of the reasons why the Father is taking me this way is because I have given you guys such an appetite on such a level for the word, and that's a wonderful thing. But to give it to you, for you to go and begin to have an appetite in your own space and in your own time to begin to consume it, so that when I come into these settings and I begin to divulge some of the things that He allows me to say, then you can grab it. You have a context for it. You can, comprehend it, and you can move in that thing. You know what I'm saying, with ease. My brother is here with me, Apostle Ace. I love you, and I'm appreciative of you being here with me tonight. As always, it's a pleasure to have you on with the congregation.
Well, I want to say holy shalom to each and every one of you, and to the apostle. It is always indeed a pleasure being with you and the congregation.
Yes,
It
sir.
is such a joy, and it's just a joy. It's time to be sharing at this time. I'm excited about everything. I'm
Absolutely.
excited about what's taking place to from the invisible to the visible,
Mm.
and it's just really, really wonderful. Um, I think Shavuot Pentecost is the mystery of all, and
Oh,
God is
yes.
revealing the mystery that
Mm.
covers all the rest. And
Yes.
so, and it's just really wonderful because it's interesting. Throughout reading the scripture, we don't see a lot about Pentecost or Shavuos, very little. And we come back, we see it in the New Testament as we read, and and everybody get excited about the day of Pentecost, but don't understand. And I believe we're coming into Yahweh revealing the total mystery of Shavuot. And I love it. I love it. And I'm looking forward to you diving into it and having this great discussion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is indeed always exciting for me because, unlike a lot of people that have crossed over into the reality of the Moeds, I don't have it all together. And you know why I don't? Because he's always revealing something. It's just, I don't see how anybody could think they have a handle on the Moeds, the appointed times. Because how do you know what he's getting ready to talk about? You have no clue. You just have no clue what he's going to say. You have no clue what he wants to reveal. But there's been this idea and this identity of a leader that's crossed over into these spaces or having some kind of identity on these things that people feel like, oh, they got a handle on this. You ain't got no handle on this. This ain't your day. This is Yah's day. You know what I'm saying? And so there is no having no handle on this because he does something different every year. As long as I've been celebrating the Moeds, brother, it has never been the same. No season is ever the same as the last season. And because we take our place, a lot of religious people, I'm saying this intentionally, a lot of
Hmm.
religious people take their place from the Jewish people, right?
Hmm.
So they
Hmm.
do the Seders and they do all of these things, and not understanding that Yah is not going to be put in a box. He has a word, a fresh word that he wants to release to his people in every season. And the beauty of this season is we know that he wants to release a fresh word because we know that leaven deals with doctrine. So we went from the waving of the sheaf, which is uncooked, nothing is cooked there, the waving of the sheaf of the barley, the omer, right? All the way to this time that we're in, this harvest of the wheat harvest, which is made to 2 loaves of bread. Leaven bread, because leaven has to deal with doctrine. So we went from just having the sheep, because you ain't ready for this information yet. You're not ready for everything that I'm going to say to you yet, but I'm preparing something in you. I'm forming something in you so that you'll be able to digest what I'm saying to you. And then we get all the way over 50 days later, the jubilee of the whole situation. The jubilee, which means something is going to be received, something is going to be returned. You understand what I'm saying? And now we're in that space where he's saying, now you're a new loaf. Now you're a new batch. Now this leaven, this doctrine is not of the place that you came from, but it is of who I am. And now you can walk something out as a new batch, as a new loaf that nobody has ever seen before. And so this is absolutely an exciting season. And like I said, he's never done the same thing twice. Of course, we may look at Leviticus 23, probably somewhere around the 16th verse. We're going to look at a couple of different things here, but there is so much context for this time. As we look into the scripture, we can see in so many ways what happened in the second month. You know, we look at the second month and we'll see continuously that there is a victory that comes out of that space. We see that second month and we see that there is something new, something that's fresh, something that's beginning. And we're right here on the verge of the end of the second month. And I posted something on Facebook before I was entered into Facebook penitentiary, dealing with the fact that we were coming into this third month, and the Father was really heavy about this third month and talking about the victory of the third month. So we're going to read something in the scripture about that as well. How Joshua had to prepare the people against the that time that the Father wanted to reveal some things, and he talked about this third day. Talked about the third day. He said, prepare the people. And so one of the things that I want to make sure that I announce before we even get really moving in this thing is that the Father's calling his people into another level of consecration. We're going to talk a little bit about what consecration is, because a lot of people get it confused. They say, well, is consecration a fast? Well, you can fast on a consecration, but it's not always a fast. It's according to what he's saying. And what we'll notice is that every time he calls us into these spaces, it's all about what he desires. When we look back into the historicity of the thing and we see the orders and the instructions that he gave the sons of Yah in those times when this thing was first born, when this thing was just a seed, he gave specific instructions. And as they followed those specific instructions and they did it with a good attitude, I had to say that because he's going to talk about some things about our habits and about some of the things that we got into a place because of our trauma and because of all the things that we've experienced. But I'm telling you, he's breaking some things, and I'm seeing some things, and I've seen some things begin to shift in a major way in just the last couple of days, because I shifted a position. I spoke to him about something. He shifted something in me. I allowed it. I allowed it to be shifted. And at the point of that activity shifting, I changed my activity, and it began to change the course of how I thought about things. And in that very moment, I began to see major shifts in different spaces and in different places, so much so that he had to begin to open up the mouth of those that would normally be saying something negative or normally be saying something against you. Now they have to acknowledge the work. This is what the word said. He said that men may see your good works and glorify the Father. They can't contest what you serve when they see your works. They can't contest who you serve when the works prove that this is no other outcome. This is a beautiful outcome. This is something that is changing the direction or the course of something. It's a beautiful outcome. And the master said it like this to the Pharisees. He said, you might not believe me. You might not believe that I'm the Son of Yah, but believe for my very work's sake. Where have you seen this? Who have you seen do this? How, just look at the works and let's deal with it from that perspective. The purity of the works, not just the works, but he's dealing with the purity of the thing, because he's not looking for any glory. Because there could be many that would say, I could heal or I could do this. And we know that the master said it this way. He said, many will say, in your name, I've cast out devils and I've done these things and I've done those things. He said, but it's going to be an issue of me not knowing you, because we don't have relationship. So I'm going to say, depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I don't know you. I never knew you. So it's not just about the actions of the matter. It's about the source, where the thing is coming from. And so we're going to deal with those things tonight, brother. What do you have to say about that?
Well, right now I am enjoying this right here, and it's just um, like you said, many things are happening, many shifts are happening.
They are.
Um, we get those cycles, wheels in the middle of the wheel,
Come on.
and these things are shifting, cycling, and so Yah's saying so many things. Yah's revealing so many things, and so it is really something to know the season that we're in, to know where Yahweh is, and like you were saying earlier, you just don't know what Yah's going to do. You know, there was a time when we got the law, we got the law, we knew that doctrine, we knew that.
Mm-hmm.
We know exactly, and it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
But we worship Him in spirit and in truth, and there's a part of Him that's always going to be something totally different. That is always a mystery how He comes at us, and
Yes.
it's not by might nor by power, but
Yes.
by my spirit. So therefore, there are things that are Yah's happening in this season that He's dealing with the spirit of things,
Yes, he
and
is.
you just don't know. And there are many people will be confused because number
Yeah.
one, they don't have truth, and then here's Yahweh with His spirit, and Yahweh to who He is, and when He moves, because when He moves, we know it's Him moving. We know it's Him. And
Hmm.
so it's just really something that how things are happening now by the spirit of or the expression of his
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so we are the expression of his mind
Hmm.
because the heart and the mind are two different things. And the heart is the expression of the mind. He said, I gave you my mind, but now I'm going to deal with the expression, meaning it's going to be, going into fire. You just don't know how it's going to be, So and
Hmm.
so he's given us this, and this is an exciting time. It really is.
It is. And a lot of times we think that the uncertainty is our enemy. We're going to talk a little bit about that fire tonight. But sometimes we think the uncertainty is the enemy, and the uncertainty is the assurance that we need him. The uncertainty is the reality that without him, we can do nothing. The uncertainty is the assurance that, listen, where is your faith? It is the measurement or the metric that identifies where our faith is and what our faith is actually in. It helps us to identify where we're located and what we actually believe. Do we have a standard or do we not have a standard? Regardless of what's happening, what is the standard? You understand what I'm saying? So I want to read really quickly the description because we love to read the description. I love to read what the Father gives me for the descriptions because it is a catalyst. It catapults us into some other things. Fires, mountains, and men, a divine reality. Many live disconnected from their divine reality in Yah, settling for illusions created by darkness. They chase visible desires and worldly accolades, believing possessions equate to blessings. Yet true abundance through Yah without the hidden cost of unauthorized worship. So what do I mean by that? Let me clarify. Maybe somebody doesn't understand that. The word talks about that the Father, every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, in whom there's no shadow of turning, no variableness. He doesn't change his mind about it. The gift is there. But it also talks about the gift that Yah gives comes without the struggle. It comes without the darkness. It comes without all of the issue. You understand what I'm saying? These are gifts that don't come with the battle. You know what I mean? So fire, an ally, not an enemy, refines our true substance. We begin to see things differently. The fire is not an enemy, it's an ally. And the mountain is where we ascend to activate Yah's potential within us. There is a call. There's consistently a call for the sons. And I'm noticing that as I am stepping back into a specific space in my heart and in my mind concerning the things that are now, that I'm sensing his presence a lot more forceful, a lot more aggressively, even engulfing my whole being. There are times there in times past, I feel it in sections of my body. Now, okay, I feel him on my back. I feel him in my like in my middle section, in my ab section. I feel him on my on my head. And in this season, it's different. I'm not just feeling sections of this fire. I'm engulfed in that fire now. I'm engulfed in that flame. So fire is an ally. It's not an enemy because it refines our true substance. What he created us as is refined in those fires. And we can look at fires, as the trials of life, the things that we go through, the things that we endure. A lot of the things that we've endured were because of ignorance. We weren't taught. We didn't know. I don't personally know. But a few people that I believe just did what they wanted to do, regardless of whatever. I believe that sincerely, a lot of people that I know desire to live for Yah. They really desire to love him and to know how to love him and to, do things in a specific way. But because of the ignorance, they stepped into some spaces that taught them some things. David said it like this: it was good that I was afflicted, that I might learn something. Listen, through my affliction, I learned what to do. The master even said it. He said that exact same thing. He said, listen, the affliction is what teaches us. We learn something through affliction. We begin to identify with certain things through affliction. The master could never have been the deliverer for the new breed of sons if he had never been touched with the feelings of our infirmities. He had to be touched with that. He had to experience that in order for him to be the deliverer that he needed to be. Just like Moshe came out of Egypt, he was acquainted with that space. He was acquainted with the gods of that space. He was acquainted with the enemies of that space concerning the children of Israel. And the Father said, upon the cry of the Israelites, he says, listen, I need you to go back, because somebody cried out. I don't know if they had a prayer service. I don't know if it was a whole bunch of them, but some people began to cry out. And upon their cry, the Father said, I'll answer, because that's what I was waiting on. I was waiting on your cry. So a lot of times we think that when we're in these spaces and we feel the pressure of the space, we feel the we don't like it. We don't like how we feel about it. We don't like, what we're experiencing in the space and all of that stuff. But it's simply putting us in a position to cry out, because what we're needing to happen can't be done on our own. What we're needing to happen, we can't do it in and of ourselves. Because the vision that he's given, this divine reality that he has expressed through his prophetic, utterance, through the oracles, through the things that he's spoken prophetically to us, is the vision that we are to live by, to bring forth this manifestation and be the expression of that manifestation in the earth. And it's nothing that we can do in and of ourselves. And the fire is what reminds us of that. It's what reminds us. Let's look at the mountain is where we ascend to activate its potential within us. However, many reject the necessary trials and divine instructions for the ascension. Everything comes with instructions. I know we say it, and we've heard it. Children don't come with manuals. Marriage don't have a manual. People say all these things, but it's stupidity. There is a manual. We just, a lot of people are ignorant of the manual and ignorant of the actions that they take that are against the manual. And that's why they're getting what they're getting, because we have to be recalled back into the realization that there is a manual, and we need to search the manual to find what the Father's, what his heart is on the matters that we're dealing with. Just like the woman at the well, the master showed up. He said, okay, I know what you're saying. You're doing your thing, and you're in this place of trauma. So you're going from one man to the next. I don't believe she was a whore. I believe she had a love for relationship. I believe that she desired to be married. And this is why she kept winding up with the ones that wasn't her husband. I don't believe that in any way meant that she was sleeping with somebody else's husband. People have all these different concepts, because what people don't understand is that when two become one, when there is an engagement physically. Okay. So these could have all been people that she was married to. But him saying, listen, you've had 3 husbands. He made it clear you've had 3, and none of them were your husband. This is not the embodiment of what that should be to you, because if it was what it should be to you, you wouldn't still be thirsting. You're not fulfilled. You're longing because of your unfulfillment, because you keep running into the thing that is not for you. And so listen, it's the instructions for the ascension that's necessary. He said, listen, I know you worship on the mount. She's trying to explain to him the worship and all that stuff. He said, listen, the day is coming, now is, when men shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. He said, we're not going over here and over there. There's no specific place as far as a location for worship, physical location, but there is a spiritual location that you're going to have to be at in order to worship him. And that's called the spirit of truth. If you're not operating from the spirit of truth, then that's worship to another. It's worship to another. Brother, you could chime in anytime you get ready. I'll know where I've left off
at. Well, you covered a lot in such a short period of time, and talking about the fire. Fire is one of my favorite subjects.
Oh my God, I love
it. And I'll be short in that and just get directly to the point. Fire, when I see fire, because you were mentioning that there's a time when you will feel the heat or a fire heat on certain portions of your body, maybe your arm, your back, midsection, different places. And I've heard that before because my hands are hot, and
Yeah.
I've said my chest is hot,
Hmm.
and but you said now I'm feeling engulfed, and Yah is a consuming fire. What Yah does, he who he is, it consumes. He's a consuming fire, and as you were saying, it's an ally and not an enemy. And I've heard so many things, and our greatest weapon is fire. We got so many weapons, but we don't use fire a lot. We hear it sometimes, but we don't know how to use it because we're not consumed by it. Because he's a consuming fire.
Okay.
and and so there are things that has happened that he comes in fire, consumed. Um, and it's just awesome. Even when Moshe at the bush, that was consuming fire. How is it that here is fire and the bush is not burning? That means that that fire is an ally for us. It won't burn us, it won't consume us in that sense of destroy us, but yet it is an ally for us. What it was showing us that he was Yah. He's by his spirit of fire. And so he's letting him know this is who I am. And yet I see it another time, consuming fire. See, Yahweh's consuming fire is an enemy to our enemies.
That's it.
Daniel,
That's it.
Daniel, the in the three Hebrew boys in the furnace, the fire 7 times hot. They showed their loyalty to Yahweh. No matter you can burn us up as hot as you want it, we still not going to bow. And at the same time,
Ain't gonna do it.
he said, "Let me get my biggest and my strongest man. We're gonna tie you tight as we can tie you." And as they were proceeding to the mouth of the furnace, the gate of the furnace, the consuming fire killed the enemy. They saw something that
My.
was phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
They saw something that, number one, it burned everything that was bound. It burned everything that was bound them, had bound them up. Burned the enemy, and then burned what was that the enemy had bound them up. Didn't burn them, didn't burn the clothes. Was no sin. Put them in there, and now it's consuming fire. So what was Yah projecting for the future? Because it's all a fourth man. They saw Yah, but yet they saw Yeshua in the furnace, what was going to be by the Spirit of Yah. It's, that fire is fascinating. And yet, as you were saying, Yah will use all of this to get you, to let you see exactly where you at. Because I was also, as you were talking, thought about in First Corinthians. And he says in chapter 2, and he says, verse 13, for his work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light, that it will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test every quality of every man's work. That's not the devil, because the devil don't have fire, because the fire of Yah is the enemy to the devil. So Yah said, I'm going to use my fire and I'm going to test the quality of your work, every man's work, for what it is. So Yahweh will use who he is. Yahweh will allow you to experience, not to burn you or consume you, but to build you and make you. That's that fire, that glory. And it's just interesting because when you go back into each time that we think about when the, how this fire, we see little things, but yet when they came out of Egypt, when they came out of Egypt, Yah descended in the earth,
Yes.
light and darkness. So that light is fire, that glory that was over the children of Israel.
Yes.
So they experienced something, and what the Egypt experienced was the sting of death.
Mm-hmm.
They experienced the sting of death. It was they couldn't take it. Their minds could not take it. It's interesting because the next time they experienced on the next 50 days, when they, as you, 3 days as they came out from being to Mount Sinai, and on the third day, fire came down again, the 50th day. That's that Jubilee. See, that's
Yes,
that that mystery of fire. And so it's just interesting how when we look at each time, we look at that 50 and what it releases in the earth. Yah comes into the earth. So where are we at now? As you read and Yakanan, you was talking about the woman at the well. And there's something that's interesting that in this translation that I read, in the 23rd verse of the fourth chapter, and it says, "But the hours come." He was quoting it. Hours come, and now is when the true worshipers will worship the Father in
there.
spirit and in truth. True. So what
True.
does the true worshipers look like today? See, we have worshipers. We have worshipers of the doctrine, the law. We have worshipers of the spirit that he said they worship in the mountains. But what does the true worshipers look like? See, this is what people can't handle. This is what Yah said. I'm getting ready to show my true worshipers, because the true worshipers I'm bringing forth now, because my fire, my glory will be upon them.
That's it. That's it.
The true worshiper. I'm saying here, what does the true worshipers look like? Do it look like the worshipers of truth? Do it look like worshipers of the spirit in the mountain, these demons and things like that? No, we don't sound the same. We don't look the same. We don't act the same. Everything about the true worshiper is something totally against mainstream religion,
Everything.
mainstream
Mainstream.
everything. It's totally different,
Everything.
and so so it's always coming against, because you don't look like us, you
Yeah.
don't sound like us, we don't accept you. But now Yahweh says, this is what's going to take. I seek for such worshipers to worship me, the true worshipers that will
Yeah.
worship me in spirit and truth. So now he said, now I've been released from the veil. All that stuff is gone. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for the true worshipers. And
Mm-hmm.
so now, it makes a difference when we look at the true worshipers. We're looking at the true sons of Yah. They're totally different.
They are.
Totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but Yah said, I got you.
Oh
This
yeah.
is this is this is your time, because my glory is coming upon you.
Mm-hmm. And then
Like
that's
Isaiah 6.
that's the time to rise. Absolutely. That's the time to rise and shine.
Hmm. Hmm. And so we've talked about it in time past about this jubilee, that we're in the spirit of the jubilee, and many things has to happen.
They
Many
have
things has to happen. And so it's identifying now the true worshipers. That's what we, because everybody can identify with each other. We can identify with this person, that y'all. We identify y'all. We know who y'all are, but you don't know who we are as a true worshiper. You
Mm-hmm.
see, I've said that to people. I say I'm a true worshiper,
Hmm.
and I begin to identify what a true worshiper looks like. What do it sound like? And people say, "Well, I'm not there with
Mm-hmm.
that like that," you know.
Good.
However, the
Mm-hmm.
bottom line is, he said true worshipers. Now the
That's
true
what he said.
worshipers. Like, and
Yep.
it's totally different. He said, I seek for such a worshipers. He said, the Father seeks such worshipers to worship him.
Such.
So that means the glory is not contained. The fire is not contained behind the veil anymore. Never will be. They want it to happen, but it will never be contained. They want to build a temple and contain the glory. Y'all said, y'all have lost your mind.
Right. Right. Mm, mm,
I'm gonna,
mm.
I'm gonna destroy. I'm gonna destroy things. Why you gonna? It's like the burning bush. I'm gonna
Mhm.
destroy things like the Daniel. The enemy. What you gonna do to burn somebody is it's not gonna burn them, but it's gonna burn you.
Mhm. And it's going to purify them. It's going to settle them.
Absolutely.
It's going to enforce
Come
their
on.
standard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So
Mhm.
it's just so when you talk about that fire, that to me is,
Mm.
a lot of times I go, I just, I'm consuming fire. I say, I release the fire. I am the fire.
Absolutely.
I am the fire. Well, like you were
Absolutely.
saying, it's all over you now. So I am a weapon.
Yeah.
I'm a
Fully
walking, living
weaponized.
weapon. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm fire. And if there's
Yeah.
an enemy, then it's just y'all give us the wisdom how to use the fire to accomplish what is needed to be done,
Yeah.
not to
And
exploit it.
let me give a clear picture of that too. While you
Go
right there
ahead.
at it. Y'all remind me about Black Sheep. Remind me about Black Sheep because I come back to Black Sheep. It was one other thing that I'm gonna remember in a minute. But that fire, talking about the exploitation of the fire. You've heard this verse before. It talks about how we deal with enemies, and what it says is when we are releasing His expression on our enemies, then we're heaping coals of fire on their head. See, when people think about fire, a lot of times they're thinking about, when you think about weapons, a lot of times you're thinking about, what you mean, it's a perspective. However, spiritual weapons don't work exactly the same. You know, sometimes spiritual weapons work in a way that you don't want to do things. You know, you might want to say something in a situation when Yah is saying be quiet because your nature is to,
Hmm.
you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Your nature is to say something. That's your normal way of doing things. But when this is what the word says, when you're dealing with a fool, you can't instruct them. When
Hmm.
so it's different situations for different spaces. You understand what I'm saying? And so he may
Hmm.
tell you to be quiet, or he may take the words out of your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Because in your worship, you have yielded yourself to such a point where you don't even remember what to say. I had a situation this year where somebody said some crazy stuff to me. Brother is aware. I mean, talk to me all the way crazy, okay? And in another season of my life, they would have got it. But in this season of my life, I couldn't even think of the words to say back to them because I have yielded my vessel to the Father to the point that you cannot just incite my flesh. Inciting flesh is simple for the adversary when your flesh is what you operate from or what you live from. But when you don't live from your flesh anymore, it's not that you're a sucker, it's that you have been delivered from the fleshly part of you, and now the spirit is at work. So that when you do a thing, you're doing it as an expression of who Yah is, and it's heaping coals of fire on the heads of the enemy versus you just coming out swinging. Now, I don't mean that, ain't a time to swing. It may be because I mean he had them taking people out all the time. You know what I'm saying? But the spiritual weapons operate in a way that most men are not willing to study. You know, we think everything is so natural. And because we think everything is so natural, we deal with everything so fleshly and so naturally, not understanding that there's another space that we can conquer our enemy from, that they are not aware of. They're not aware of it. Black sheep. I want to go to the black sheep thing because the Father was talking to me about black sheep the other day. You're talking about now is our time. You're talking about the true worshipers, right? And here's the thing. The true worshipers are black sheep, because you mentioned about how, you know, the ostracization and all of these other things that they've had to encounter and experience, all of these different experiences that have brought so much trauma and so much pain, right? But every sheep has its day. And dyeing your fur will never change the fact that it's not your season. It is the season of the black sheep. When you look at the scripture and you see the sons of Yah that were advanced, that were promoted, it was a black sheep situation. Every sheep has his day. The black sheep season is now. You know, David was a black sheep. You know, Joseph was a black sheep. Abraham was a black sheep. We could consider Moses a black sheep because he was ostracized from Egypt. You know what I'm saying? He had to leave his family. He was ostracized from Egypt. Listen, when that season turns, and I'm telling you, it has already turned, everything that the Father says will come to pass. And this is why we're seeing such an onslaught of revelation and uncovering of so many things. You know why? Because the season has come for the sons to get in place. Remember, I'm constantly talking about these maps, these literary maps, and this industry map, and all of the industries and things. And the Father says, I'm going to give my kingdom to the sons. It is a time where the enemy comes to wear out the saints, and he has accomplished the wearing out of the saints. But I'm telling you now that our habits have to change in order for us to get in the proper positioning. The habit has to change. I know you've habitually functioned in a certain way. You've habitually functioned in this place of trauma, but now you have to make different decisions about what you're going to become. You got to make a different decision, and that decision has to be based on what the Father has spoken to you. So when he speaks the word, you have to begin to see the word. And as you begin to see the word, you begin to say the word. And as you begin to say the word, you understand that you have to become something to embody the word that you're saying. You have to become something in order to step into the dimension of that thing, to see the manifestation of what's on the heart and mind of Yah. It will not just happen because you see it. It will not just happen because you say it. You have to become it. And the way to become it is a changing of the mind. We've been talking about the technology of man, the technology of the mind. What's keeping man from the space that he needs to be in? What's keeping man from the mind of Yah that he needs to have? It's the technology that he's been operating in. It's old technology. And the Father saying, now it's time for the upgrade. And the fire has had to prove you to this point. And now that you understand the fire as an ally and not an enemy, now changing the mind is going to change the course. Changing the mind is going to change the course of the sons. It is the hour of the black sheep. I'm going to give you this word that he gave me, and we'll keep going here. Yah says, I'm calling you out of your past into my future that I formed for you. Through the fires you will purge of all of the traumas that hold your body hostage to the diabolic habituations that continue to employ the dark cycles. Come out of the known. Because, you know, a lot of times people are struggling with what they know. They don't understand that their body and their mind, their heart is fighting them to come into, to stay in the known and not to step into the unknown, because the unknown you don't know. So it's kind of shady there. You're kind of nervous. You're familiar with the known, even though it's not the place you want to be, but it is comfortable for you because it's what you have seen and it's what you see. And so at least you know something about that. But the unknown is a space that you don't know anything about. So he said, come out of the known and step into a place you've never been, to stop rehearsing what seem to be your failures and see them from the place of victory. It is this decision to see that will change your very being. This is the time of breaking habits, old habits, old habits. The sound of your worship And your worship is active obedience. I know the church told you that your highest praise was hallelujah, but they lied. Your highest praise is your obedience. That is the worship that the Father is looking for. That is the only true worship that he's looking for. It's obedience, active obedience. He said that sound of your worship, your active obedience, will change the very foundation, the particles of your being. The divine reverberation is changing the direction of your substance, and the outcomes you will see are just as I gave you the vision that they would be. But you've got to change the habit. And I was looking at something this past week. It was so powerful. It was talking about habits and how, most people get up in the morning and they have these same patterns, these same habits. A lot of people grab their phone first and they begin to look at TikTok, begin to scroll through things and look at things. And what you're doing when you do that is you're getting someone else's vision. You're getting someone else's vision for you. And he was talking about, that's my point of view. You're getting someone else's vision. He said it differently, more from a intellectual place, but you're getting someone else's vision. So in getting someone else's vision, you begin to worry about and concern yourself with the things you concerned yourself with yesterday, instead of identifying with what the Father has said and what the position is that you need to host or hold in order to step into what he's already said. You already have picked up and are already carrying the worries of yesterday. You didn't put them down. You didn't lay them at his feet. You didn't bring it to the altar. You didn't have a space where you release that. You're holding on to it. He said, what you going to do with that? What can you do with any of this? If you could do something about it, then you worrying about it, you concerning yourself with it, would have been what changed it all. But the fact that you woke up again and it was the same exact situation that it was the day before says that your concern about it, your worry about it, and all of your pondering about it is not changing the situation. Another word talks about us not being able to change the numbers on our head. Change the numbers on our head, right? The stature that we grow to. We're not in control of that. It's the Father that knows the numbers of hairs on our head. It's the Father that knows the structure that he's building in the fact that he's building a man or a woman, right? And so he knows those things. So we can't worry about, well, I wish I was 5'10", or I wish I was 6'3". Listen, he knows the frame and he understands the frame that he has formed and the purpose of its forming. And so we're worried about things to that degree. The things that we're concerned about every day are the things that are such as how tall you are or how short you are. If we should take no thought for our lives, whether we should eat or drink or wherewithal we shall be clothed, because he said it's the world that considers those things. It's the world that thinks about that. He said, listen, you ain't got to concern yourself with that. That's their job. They worry, but you should know how who's going to do what was going to be done. You should know. And we shouldn't be worried about how he's going to do it. We just need to be getting in the position for it to be done. Brother, come on in there. For mute
Okay.
us for a minute and close.
Oh, wow, that's powerful. And just as you were thinking, talking, I'm sorry, as you were sharing, um, this week, my thoughts were in kind of in that direction, and um, it wasn't. It's not a frustration with me, but so many people that I put it like this. I can't say for everybody, but many people that I deal with, many people are stuck. They're stuck, and I'm like, Yahweh, how do some of the things how do we deal with some of these everyday problems? People dealing with the same thing over and over and over again. We give them the word and things like that, and I'm like, Father, but how do we? What do we do as leaders with people? Yah will begin to minister to me with a kingdom of Yah conversation versus a conversation of the world, outside of outside of Yahweh. Yahweh said, what does these conversations look? What does my conversation in my kingdom looks like versus everyday conversation? Like you said, you wake up, you pick up the phone, go on TikTok, and now you got all this going on, this type of conversation, and now you are worried. So now we get into how we're gonna do we solve it, or we just continue to go over this over and over and over again. And so I am saying, yeah, he said, how do you solve these problems in my kingdom? What's what's my conversation? What's my
Absolutely.
what's my what's my kingdom conversation about this? What's my language of this? Because their
Mm-hmm.
language and my language is different. Their conversation and my
Yep.
conversation is different. So
Mm-hmm.
what I said, y'all, we got to bring people into your conversation on every level of our lives. What does that conversation? What does I'm behind in my bills? What does that what does that conversation sound like in the kingdom of Yah? How do we how do you solve that in the kingdom of Yah? Or do you bring the conversation in into the kingdom of Yah? Yah said, I'm not having it. I'm not this is not my kingdom. This is not my language. This is not my conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? I sometimes I'm thinking, wow, so many people are stuck, and we have to come to a place, uh, us who being leaders, who the black sheep are not stuck anymore.
That's
No
right.
matter what, they people, everybody ain't gonna be saved. That's
Bottom line.
part
Bottom line.
that's all. Everybody, and we got to get that. you know. But everybody will have an opportunity, you know. And so, because people make choices, as you said, people making choices, and the choice today that you got to be mindful of the choice that you make today, because it's an everlasting choice. But we make the right choice. He's giving you the opportunity to be connected to the right source to say, listen, you've been stuck. You're still confused. But if you come when you come to the mountain, when you come to the mountain,
Yeah.
this is what's going to have to happen because all the stuff that you've dealt with in the world hasn't happened for you. So Yah will
Mm-hmm.
bring people to being humble to say yes, to follow instructions. Everybody ain't gonna follow instructions because some people gonna be stuck in their way. I got this and that and the other. Okay, that's how it is. So, but yet Yah is doing what he's doing now because he's using the black sheep.
My,
Absolutely, the misfit.
my.
hmm This is our hour.
It is.
This is it because we got to, by being clothed and consumed with this fire, we are protected. The fire is a protection
It
because
is.
the enemy cannot see us in fire.
Mm-mm.
Can't see our flesh, the glory.
That was what
Can,
separated the children of Israel. That fire by night was the
oh
divisor
yeah,
between the children of Israel and the Egyptians.
absolutely. And so we'll be able to maneuver in darkness,
Mm-hmm.
and the enemy can't do nothing with us.
Nothing about
Nothing.
nothing about
Why? Because
it.
we're
I love it.
consumed with fire. But anyway, that's
My. It's a new way to play the game. You know, one of the things you'll notice on the screen, It was just a different thing for me. I said, Father, well, what are we doing? He told me to put this virtual headset on this thing and put Shavuot in the glass and the fire in the glass. And, you know, y'all on the flyer, you see the man in the glass. You see him there. And on the screen, now you see him arising from that. But that virtual reality place is a place that was created by men for us to be in a different experience. You know, for us to break out of the simple experience of playing the game and to step into this snapshot of a deeper space, you know, because VR creates this illusion of a seeming reality, right? It makes us feel very present in an artificial environment, you know? And so what I saw when he said that, I said, wow, okay, so I get that, but why are we doing that? He said, because I want people to realize that everything that man gets has come from a spiritual place. And really the knockoff of virtual reality is the oracle, the vision of spoken that's supposed to be received by the sons. And we're supposed to have the image so clear, just like this virtual reality. We're supposed to begin to embody the vision of Yah so clearly that we feel immersed in the experience. This is why I'm talking about the difference, that place, and I got a whole room full of children. The difference in that place, well, this is what I want to talk about, the difference of the place. And I think we kind of hit on it a little bit of how there is true worship. You know, you got people that have been able to imitate or grab the mannerisms of spirituality, right? And this is what we're faced with right now. This is what we see right now. It's this challenge, take that off your foot, Carlito, of different people who are now, they have the mannerisms of faith. They have the mannerisms of spirituality, but they're not embracing the truth. You understand what I'm saying? This is what we're dealing with in all this leadership and all of this stuff that we're seeing now, right? Because the mannerism doesn't mean that there is authentic truth or manifestation of the spirit. That's not what that means. You know, anybody can lift hands. I heard somebody saying that they were watching this person as they were growing up, and how as they were watching the person as they were growing up, they were like, wow, I wish I had that kind of fire in my worship, or I wish I, really could invite, just have that experience, that kind of spiritual experience, like the person had such a great spiritual experience. And many years later, the person left that space and didn't even believe in Yah no more. Wait a minute, what?
Oh my, oh my.
Okay. We cannot look at the outside. The word of Yah describes to us the way that we should see people. He said, you should know men not by the flesh, but by the spirit. And it's a lazy man's way to deal with people from the outside instead of dealing with people from the inside out. It's a lazy way to live. It's a very dangerous way to live. I tell people all the time, I didn't know people were crazy till I got grown. But that's because nobody told me that people were crazy. You understand what I'm saying? I had not yet encountered it, and nobody warned me to have an expectation of crazy people. Now, I had seen some crazy things, right? When I was young, I think I might have been about 5, and I was sitting downstairs in the church, excuse me, don't do that. Give me that. Why do you have this, Carlito? That's not even that. Stop. It wasn't even an issue of not seeing crazy things. I saw crazy things. However, I didn't really realize at 5 because, children see, and that's another perspective, because maturity will tell you how to see things, right? Maturity and experience will give you the lens that you need to look through. I saw some things. We were just sitting downstairs in the, what they call it, a hall, and we would eat breakfast down there before church, sitting next to a very elderly lady that was in our church at the time. And her sister came down the stairs and stabbed her several times. I'm like 4 or 5 times, just stabbed her. And I'm sitting right there next to her, And so I've seen some crazy things, but because I was never taught that people can be crazy, there are really crazy people in the world, then I had a different lens that I was looking for. I was looking through rose-colored glasses at everything. I was looking through a very false lens at everything that I saw. and looking for the best in everything. No, some things aren't good at all. You know, some things are not true in this thing. No, some things are just wicked. Some things are just not good. And so we live in an age where people are melding. It's such a melting pot. You know, church is such a melting pot, but people have to understand, and I think you've said this, and I've shared this over and over, brother, that we've got to understand the difference between what we're calling church and what we're living in this age now of what we call church and what the kingdom is. The kingdom and the church are often not the same thing. This is why people can get church hurt. And I've heard people say, there's no such thing as church hurt. You a lie. People hurt people in church. That's church hurt. Okay? People get hurt all the time in that space. Sometimes people's lives are altered for many
Ooh-wee.
years of their life because of things that happen in that space. That's called church hurt. You're not going to chase it away. You're not going to act like it doesn't exist. Okay? In the kingdom, people are not seeking to hurt people. That's not their objective. Leaders are not seeking to dominate or to rule. I was listening to some things today, and a lot of the leaders that I grew up listening to that actually had revelation in that season are turned into some kind of snakes and vipers now because they've reached a plateau now, and after COVID, they don't have the same reach. So now they're driving their employees, the employees of the church. Notice I said that very clearly. The employees of the church, they're driving them like slave masters because they want the same notoriety they had. They want the same acceptance that they had. They want the same position that they had in the hearts and minds of people. And it's a wash. COVID made everything a level playing field. COVID knocked down that space where they had the lion's share of things and all that. No, COVID said, forget about all of that. And the Father said, I'm not looking for any of that in the first place. But now that this thing has transpired and all of these places have closed and more are still closing, and people think, oh my God, what's happening to the church? Things are closing down. But guess what? The kingdom has come. You understand? The kingdom has come. And what will remain is that which has been tried by fire, and they may stop calling themselves a church. This was the other thing I meant to say. You know, when I say the congregation, I want you to know that that's not a denomination. Neither is that an institution or a specific entity. I'm dealing with the people of Yah collectively that come together. We are the congregation. We are the congregation. You know? So that was so important for me to mention as we're dealing with fires, mountains, and men, because we've seen, and brother, I think you mentioned a couple of the fires, you know, and people love to just kind of lean in. That's why the church just calls it Pentecost. They don't deal with Shavuot. They don't deal with the depth of that. They only deal with the whole cloven tongues of fire and men speaking with new tongues. But what they don't understand is the false doctrine that they're teaching is this result of why we have these watered down believers, because those tongues were tongues that were languages. They were not the heavenly tongue. They were languages that were given to men to communicate with other men the message of the king. And so it's been convoluted into something else. And because of that convolution, we've got this pollution that's some kind of knockoff of what the reality of Yah is concerning his people. Brother, you can jump in. I'm going to mute for a minute and put these children out of my space.
Well, and you're right. Um, so many people just having the form of worship. we we see that. We see many people have this form of worship, but as you said, our obedience is our worship.
It's our worship.
Our obedience is our worship, and we see that as things are present now, we see that it's not there's no obedience.
Mm-hmm.
There's no obedience with those in the church, as we would say, not the kingdom,
Mm-hmm. The
but the
kingdom
church.
ain't got an issue. The kingdom ain't sick. You know, I hear people
No.
say that all the time. Church, you know, they're trying to act like, well, the it's not
Hmm.
sick.
No, no. And so that's where I was
It's no
going
issue in the
into.
kingdom.
No, no issue, none. And I'm like,
No issue.
so I and I don't allow now when people come in my space, I choose how I'm going to do what the conversation is about.
Absolutely.
Is this conversation kingdom conversation, or if you trying to get the church counter conversation into where I'm at, it's not going to work. It's only going to work when you hear my conversation, when you hear my language. Either you're going to be drawn into it, or it's going to drive you away.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's and that's the way that is. So it's the kingdom, as you said earlier, the kingdom of Yah is here. It's here,
Hmm.
and we're taking it. We're taking the kingdom to the streets. We're taking it.
That's it.
And so, and so people was like, ooh, your conversation. I like the language, but no, there ain't no but. You can't, especially when you've been around a long time, when you know better, you choose not to do better.
Yeah.
Listen, you need to go somewhere.
You got to go on somewhere with that.
Yeah, because this is because people are still, the church is still looking for miracles.
Absolutely.
They're looking for miracles. And if the church is
Hmm.
still looking for miracles, that means that you're not mature enough, you're not in a position to be a miracle.
Period.
Period.
Still looking for miracles. You know what the Father told me years ago, brother? He said, it's two things that's missing in that entity. This is how you know it's not from him. Now, some things he told me at 16 that I've carried for a long time. But he said, faith and glory are the two missing components. And anywhere where there's the missing components of faith and glory, I'm not in it.
That's right. The faith and glory. Oh my goodness, that's one. They up together.
They operate together.
Faith is who he is, and glory is who he is.
Yeah.
And so it's really something because we see so many things today that you know as he positioning us for many shifts that are taking place. We're looking at Exodus. We talk about more Exodus,
Yes.
but the black sheep. He's gotten us together now because y'all, I mean, y'all is just my goodness
It's crazy.
to get us fine tuned. I mean, y'all said I'm fine tuning you. We said, okay, I'm like, you get excited, and y'all said, but there's something else. What? I gotta allow you to go through this
Yes.
because I'm fine tuning you.
That's it.
Because as you go forth and people come, they will not see anything. What they're going to see is the pure me, the pure heart.
That's it. Yeah.
I want everything. I'm like, oh my goodness. And y'all just dealing with me on some things. Y'all said on some areas of deliverance. Y'all
Hmm.
says there's some things you connected a long time ago. People have connected and married to the thing. This is why the spirit is important doing this, the spirit of these things. We connected with spirits and need to be divorced. And from some of these things, we connected ourselves in the spirit and we've gone about our business.
That's right. And thought just because we
And
went about our business that thing was settled.
right.
No,
And
they
God
believe
said, no, no, no.
connected to that. It was legal
I'm going to you got to get a spiritual divorce from this
force.
spirit that you from this thing and that you don't even see, but it have used you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not know that people are
Mm-hmm.
being married to the spirit of lie,
Yeah, absolutely.
been been connected to the spirit of theft,
Mm-hmm.
and think and don't think nothing of it.
Mm-hmm.
Been attached and married to the spirit of adultery,
Mm-hmm.
and we see the results of this we see it in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen, yeah, I mean, you talking about getting fine tuning the black sheep.
Woo.
Oh my goodness! I
Mm.
mean, our fur. I'm just looking at the fur, and it's just beautiful now because he washed us,
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
purified us.
Put oil on our head to keep the bugs out of us.
Come on, okay. And, yes.
Mm-mm.
So, so Yah is fine tuning, making sure everything, there are those that want to be married. He's going to fine tune that you're not attached to absolutely nothing with you and your spouse to be, period.
That's it. That's it. Mm-hmm. He knows what we don't know, and he sees what we don't see. And so we are having
Absolutely.
those those intimate encounters with him, which is so important, so important.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
because as you are with someone, the intimacy increases. This is how you know you with the right person. Because
Hmm.
intimacy should increase, not decrease.
Hmm.
Because you know more about each other and you still love each other regardless of what you know.
Hmm.
You know, so there should be an increase in intimacy, but all we've seen, all our examples have been is a decrease. I was talking with somebody the
Hmm.
other day talking about how I saw, we laugh at, Lucille Ball. I love Lucy, but them people slept in two different beds.
Hmm.
We saw some stuff. There were some doctrines that were projected
Hmm.
that some of us saw literally in our lives. I saw that literally in a household, in a family household.
Hmm.
They slept in a whole other room. They didn't sleep in bed side by side. She slept in one room and he slept in the other.
I got in trouble back then.
What you say,
Why
brother?
so?
What is he doing over there?
I, no, I asked my mother. I said, "Why y'all don't sleep in twin beds?"
Oh my goodness.
I said, "They do it on TV."
Right.
I said, "Why y'all don't?" My
Mm-hmm.
mother goes, "Shut up! Now, just be quiet."
Get out of here. Don't be trying to be grown.
Right?
But
I'm
we
like, they sleep in twin beds. How come your daddy don't sleep in twin beds?
uh-huh. We saw that impacted our vision.
Hmm.
That it made an impact in ways that we are not even aware of. And this is why Holy Spirit does what he does, because he brings to remembrance. That's why things come up.
Hmm.
When things come up, we just feel like we should be frustrated about why that coming up. He like, I gotta deal with something. I'm
Hmm.
fine
Hmm.
tuning something. I'm
Hmm.
addressing some things. You're not aware of what's connected to you. Some of these things are
Hmm.
things from family, alliances and covenants that have been made. And we got these adversaries. Y'all not the only jealous one. These adversaries
Hmm.
are jealous over your life. They don't want to turn you loose. They don't want to let you go. Your
Called
great
stronghold.
granddaddy made a covenant with them that the next three babies was belonging to the adversary because of what they
Hmm.
want.
Gotta
They
pay the
made,
piper.
you know. And so when
Hmm.
you're seeing things or sensing things, you can't just push them off. That's why I believe this consecration is so important. I want to shift gears for a second and talk about this consecration for a moment, because you got to have the mindset of consecration. And it's so funny. I was writing some things down the other day. Let me find my booklet. There it is. And I wanted to give just a brief explanation of this, because there's so much confusion concerning kingdom things. But you can't identify with kingdom things speaking to people that are not in relationship to the king, that have their own set of rules, their own set of ideas. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things that have been so confusing for so many people, because all of these different rules and all these ideas are creating another man. You know, the father saw something very specific through Samuel the prophet, right? He said, okay, he chose him, right? He said, okay, the donkeys are good. You out here searching for these donkeys, right? The donkeys have been found, but you've been chosen to do something. That wasn't his anticipation, that he was going to leave his father's house and run into his assignment. You know, he wasn't thinking, I'm going to leave my father's house, go look for these donkeys, and I'm going to step into my purpose. You know what I mean? He thought his purpose was to go find the donkeys, you know, but he stepped out there to go find the donkeys. He's doing something simple, looking for something simple, looking for something dumb, right? Because it was a part of his business, his family business. But when he stepped out there, he runs into the prophet because he has to, because he can't find the donkeys. And so the father uses what he wants to use to get us into spaces so that he can communicate something to us. But notice Saul didn't deny what was said. He followed the instructions, even though Saul had a propensity for a lot of different things. When I think about Saul, and I'm going to read this consecration piece in a minute. When I think about him, I think about the fact that he was very a consumer. Because think about it, as he's walking and his servant is saying, I know where the prophet lives. We need to go see the prophet. He said, we ain't got nothing to give him. That meant he was eating up all the stuff. Everything that he took with him, he thought he had consumed, because he was a consumer. You understand what I'm saying? The servant said, no, we got something. I held it back because I know you. I know your personality. So I held stuff back so we would have some things, right? So just think about this. I'm speaking from a level, and if you catch this, then you might really step into another dimension of who you are and step into a place where you'll step into your purpose and your assignment. He said, I held some things back from you. You're thinking, oh, I ate it all, so we ain't no hope. Ain't no hope because I've consumed everything. There's nothing left. I don't have what I need to do what the next move is. And he said, no, I held some stuff back from you because in your mind, in the current mindset that you lived in, you would have consumed it all and had nothing to be able to come into the dimension that I was calling you into. Let's think about it. If Saul had not gone to the prophet in that hour, there are specific timelines that the Father has established for us. And if we pay attention to the timelines, then we can appreciate the timelines and step into the space, understanding and seeing things through a different lens, seeing them through the divine lens of Yah, and not through our frustration and not through our aggravation about situations. You know what I'm saying? I promise you, I begin to see a thing differently. He told me something very specific to do. And so I pressed the issue in a space. I pressed the issue. This is what we need to do. And we need to do this. So here we go. I did something for someone and they were throwing some things out. And I saw it as a repurpose situation. I didn't see it as a throw out. So I went and got it off their curb. Said, no, we ain't throwing that away. They said, well, I'll buy another. I said, you ain't got to buy another one. You buy another one, it'll be for another purpose, but we can use this. This can be repurposed. But if you've never seen the repurposing of something that looks like junk to you, you don't understand the beauty that can come out of something repurposed. So I took and did a thing because it's what I do. And when I stepped back into that space, the Father said, do this a certain way. He said, let this become as if it's your own. And when I begin to step into the space as if it's my own, this is what I would want to see. This is how I want us to be run. This is how I want us to function. As soon as I did that, everything began to shift in that space. Everything began to shift in that space. And so now we're looking at something different. But here's the thing. The consecration is the key. Because consecration doesn't just mean the fast. Consecration is a dedication to a divine way of doing things. I'm giving you definitions that he gave me. It's a preparation for divine outcome. Consecration. I said, Abba, what is it? He said it's an intentional action. It's intentional actions that I'm giving instructions for a thing, and you intentionally act upon a thing because it's preparing you for the divine outcome. It's a divine way, and it's your proof that you're dedicating yourself to that way. It's a separation from that which is common. We talked about that common way earlier. It's a separation from what is common, a commitment to sanctify. It's a separation from something, but it's a separation to something. You understand what I'm saying? It's a purification, a detoxification. It's a revelatory place. It's a place of revelation. Consecration is about foundations. It's about foundations in the relationship. So I commit myself to a thing. But in committing myself to it, I am uncommitting myself to something else. So it may come in the form of him asking for something of you. Like, I need you to fast. I need you to do this at a specific hour. But whatever it is that you're consecrating yourself to, you got to consecrate yourself from something else. And a lot of people are not willing to do that because they want to meld it all together. They want a melting pot. You know, they want a melting pot. They want to be able to do X, Y, and Z and do that. And this is what we're looking at in the church. This is church mannerism. I can do it all and still serve Yah. No, you can't. And truth only comes of what he's saying to you and your response to it to manifest it. That's it. That's all. You know, that's it. That's all. When people think about sin, they only think of the cardinal things that people mention. But sin is missing the mark. So what is the mark? What is the mark? You know, where we are right now. We're in this preparation for release. We got 2 spring feasts. We're on the second one, and then we're going into the third in the fall. But all of this is preparation for release. And so how does Father get this to us and through us? Sometimes, and a lot of times, he has to get it to us and through us through a dream space. It's the fires, the mountains, and the men. We're dealing with the fires because it's what the Father uses to purge us or to purify us, right? That's not just the trial while we're awake, but sometimes it's the trial by fire in the dream. What does that look like? I've used this example before, and I don't know if I'll mention the other thing, but I've used this example before of this particular dream where I was being confronted with enemies. I had a little baby. I recognized that these people were coming. I put the baby in the closet behind all these towels. They didn't look in there. It took everybody's child but mine. And when I saw that they were coming back again in another season, now I had seen them approach a vehicle that I was in, and the person that was in the vehicle was somebody that I was married to prior to, you know, the divorce. It was my second handler actually, and I had a baby then. But when they were approaching the car, I was telling him to gun it, press the pedal. He rolled the window down to talk to the person, and the person had a gun. Well, I got down with the baby in the car, so obviously nothing happened to us. He was no longer in the dream, so maybe they blew him away, but he was no longer seen, okay? Next thing I know, I was in this place, and in this place with all these different people with all these children, and all of their children were taken because these people that were assaulting us at the vehicle also were the people that were assaulting this space, this building, right, where we all lived. And so when I saw them coming the second time, it was because the Holy Spirit sparked something in me. I put my baby in the closet again, and I went to the double doors that they busted through the first time. But they were glass double doors, you know, with the little arm thing on the middle where you press that part to open the door. And when I got to the door, I reached down in the dream. I didn't have anything with me. I took nothing to the door. But in the spirit realm, I clearly reached down into the spirit realm and pulled up all of these major weapons and began to fire them at the same time. I walked to the door empty-handed. There's something in this for somebody this afternoon, this evening, or wherever you're watching from. Something in this for you. I walked to the door empty-handed, but because of faith and glory, because I knew the God that I served, and I had been processed through the fire, I knew who I was dealing with, and I knew that he was my avenger. I knew that he fought for me. I knew that I had what I needed anytime I needed it. I reached down in the dream I didn't run. I didn't hide. I reached down by my sides in this dream and pulled up these major weapons and began to fire and killed every one of those that were assaulting the space that we were in. Destroyed them. But I walked to the door empty-handed. Are you hearing me? So there's a new way to play the game. And so when we're talking about these habits, these habitual spaces that have been created, this habitual way of seeing a thing, this habitual way of feeling a thing, and I'm saying we got to look at this thing differently. We got to see it from the perspective of, Father, I can't do this without you. But while I'm in the space that I'm in, whatever space I'm in, whether I'm comfortable or uncomfortable, I'm going to believe that you're putting me in an uncomfortable position because I'm being touched by something. I'm going to believe that I'm being put in an uncomfortable position so that I can be purged from some other things. I'm going to believe that I've been put in a particular situation so that I will appreciate the space that you're bringing me to. The Craig brothers had this song back in the day when we were growing up, and if you've never been sick, you wouldn't know what it means to be well. If you never had to cry sometime, you couldn't appreciate, the joy of something. You know what I'm saying? If you've never been hungry, you can appreciate food on your table. See, there is a second side of this coin. And we've got to begin to identify that there are two sides of the coin. And we decide how we're going to see it. We decide what we're going to, how we're going to function and what our response is to things. But it's got to be a decision that we make because it's a new way to play the game. So we go back to the VR headset for a hot minute because it's that space that gives us the lifelike experience. And this is the purpose of Yah's prophetic utterance, to give you the image of what he's done that you need to manifest. He already did it. Think about that. Can you count the number of things that you've seen in a sci-fi movie flick that are now a reality? Did you know that when you saw it in the movie, it was already imagined? And in that case, it was already done. And in many cases, already created, just not brought to public knowledge. What am I saying? Meaning it was hidden technology. What am I saying? A lot of the things that we're seeking after, if we're going after Yah in a specific way, there are some things that are secret things that he only has. But when he reveals it to us, it belongs to us and our children forever. There's some hidden technologies that we have to tap into, but only the fire will cause us to identify that there's something lacking. The fire will reveal to us that there's something necessary that has to be added to us or taken away from us. The fire will reveal those things to us so that we can position ourselves just like the woman at the well who thought she had it all together. She thought she understood worship. She thought she understood the location. He said, nah, it ain't none of that. This is what it is. Brother, go ahead. Brother, are you there? He's on mute. Are you there? Are you there? Job, the book of Job has that discussion. He'll be right back if he's not there. Has that discussion that the Father speaks once, yea, twice, and man doesn't perceive it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, while man slumbers on his bed, the Father's trying to reveal something. He's trying to show us something. He's trying to give us something. But we can't take lightly these supernatural spaces that we're allowed to enter into. We cannot take it lightly. So so this is the importance of consecration as well. Because even from a natural perspective, people have fasted for health reasons and all kinds of things. And it is a fact that after you fast and you get past that third day, really the second day for many of us, then your brain begins to go into another space. It goes into a theta space. It goes into a whole nother space. And you'll recognize that there's a fog that's lifting. You recognize that you can see things differently. Maybe it's the fact that we need to come into a space of consecration and a space of fasting that we've never encountered before in order to move the cobwebs so that we can hear and so that we can see. He's been talking to me about some things. He said, listen, you remember I gave you that spiritual detox thing? Yeah. I said, okay. Then I gave you the 40 days of fruit. Yeah. And I had to go back and I had to recognize where I veered off of what he originally gave me. It was over 7 years ago. I kind of veered off relationship, right? And I kind of veered off of the path. Started allowing certain things that I don't really allow into my diet, dairy being a main culprit. Okay. And that thing started, listen, because I created this system and this cycle. It took some time for me to get to a space. But when I arrived there, I said, whoa, wait a minute. What's going on? He said, you left off of where I put you. You got to go back. He's calling us back to a space. He's resetting us. He's reclaiming us. And it's all for his glory. But it's going to take some sacrifice. It's going to take some sacrifice. It's going to take us seeing the fire differently. It's going to take us going to the mountain for the purpose that ascension is a proverbial mountain. You're going to that proverbial place of ascension because you are willing to go through the fire. You know, the first thing that the Father did with the Master once he was baptized of John in the Jordan, he was baptized, and then the Master, it didn't say that anybody else saw it, but it did say that the Master saw descending, you know, as a dove, the Holy Spirit. And the first thing the Holy Spirit does when the Mashiach encounters him is drives him into a wilderness. Don't nobody want to go into no wilderness. But the Holy Spirit drove him into the wilderness. See, we want the mountain experience, but we don't want the fire experience. But that is the divine reality, is the fact that we can accept the fire as an ally to get to the mountain, to become the mankind that we're supposed to be. It all works hand in hand. Brother, are you there? I don't know where brother went. All right, so let's just keep going. Let's keep going. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 16. It says this: you shall count 50 days to the day after the seventh Sabbath. This is why the Sabbath is so important, because here's the thing. If we don't follow the Sabbath, how will we know the appointments? If we don't follow the Sabbath, we won't know the appointments. Therefore, we won't arrive at the place that he's designed for us to receive what he has designed for us. He said, count 50 days to the day after the seventh Sabbath. And here goes this 7 again. We consistently are seeing this 7 as it pertains. But understand, we leave from the mark of 7 and we go beyond that perfection place into that Jubilee, which is a spirit of Jubilee, as brother was talking about. It's a perpetuation of something, and it's a maturation of something. I was talking about the locational fires, right? And now there's an experience where there's a consuming fire. That is a maturation process. That's what that is. It's the Father signifying, okay, you've arrived in a space. And so now this is the signification that you've arrived in that space. This is my communication with you. This is how I communicate with you now. But then it says, then you shall present a grain offering. And we talked about this a little bit already. A new grain to Yah. A new grain. It is not the same grain. The last grain was barley. And the last thing was a sheaf. Now you're going to express this new substance to me. This is a new thing. Okay. It's a new thing that I'm expressing now. Forgive me, guys. Y'all don't see the bubbles anymore. That I'm creating. You understand? And so as I'm creating this new space, then there's something new that's coming out of that. It's not the same old thing. There's something new that's coming of that. You understand what I'm saying? So this is absolutely imperative that we understand this. It's absolutely imperative. Let me see if I can. It's absolutely an imperative that we understand this. Because at the end of the day, let me see if this works. There we go. At the end of the day, we'll come back to the other bubble thing when he comes back. At the end of the day, it's what the Father's calling us to, that we are willing and obedient, that's going to cause us to eat something. We're only going to eat the good of the land because we are willing and obedient. Not because we just are willing. Okay, yeah, well, I want to do it, but I don't really feel like it. It's no time for that. We got to be willing in order to eat. It's a willingness and an obedience. So this is the mystery of the fire. That is not an enemy, but it's an ally. This is the mystery. And so as we're looking at this and the 7 Sabbaths and the realization that we need to acknowledge the Sabbath, we have to. Because the lack of acknowledgement of the Sabbath is going to put us in a position where we don't arrive at the space we need to be in when we need to be there. He said this to the Pharisees. He said, you can discern the weather. You know the weather systems that are coming in. You're discerning that by the sky. He said, but you don't have any spiritual discerning. You're not able to discern spiritual things. Where's your discerning when it comes to the spiritual things? You don't have that because there's a relationship that's lacking. There's a consecration to something else. And understand, consecration is not a spiritual word. It is not just a church word. It's not just it's a word that denotes a worship to something or someone. Jezebel was consecrated to her gods. Pharaoh was consecrated to his gods. He didn't serve the God of the Israelites. Jezebel didn't serve her gods. She was consecrated to that fact. And everything that she did denoted her consecration to the gods that she served. So now here's the question that the Father desired me to share. He said, well, what are you consecrated to? What is your standard? Do you have a standard? What is the thing that's your go-to when you're challenged? What does that look like? Because the Father's desiring to bring us into another level of maturity as it pertains to how we respond to things, to environments, to all of these different things. What is that? What does that look like? You understand what I'm saying? Because that's denoting where your level of consecration is and to whom your consecration is to. You understand? I was looking at something earlier today, and it was so amazing because the Father began to talk about the deep calling to the deep. We know that's a verse of scripture. The deep call to the deep, right? And I was learning something that I had never seen before. And it kind of made me think of Jonah, because we think of this whale. A lot of people call it a whale. It's not a whale. It was a special fish that was created for Jonah particularly. But as I was listening to something today and studying something about, I identified with deep sea gigantism. Okay, so you say, what is deep sea gigantism and what does that have to do with what we're talking about? The lower you go in the water, the bigger the creatures are. The deeper you go in the water, the more depth, the greater the creature. For the greater depth, the greater the creature. I'm talking about, we're looking at octopi that are, oh my God, those octopus, the octopi was so big. It was like people standing around. It was like a major mountain, just laying, a blob of a major mountain just laying there. And all these, you could see all the little bodies around it, observing it. Gigantism. Look into it. I'm telling you, it was deep to me. But it made me think of a spiritual principle, that the deep call it to the deep. And that the deeper we go, the greater we become. The more that we allow the Spirit of Yah to call us into these depths, the greater we become. And this is why we are those that are seated in heavenly places far above. What does it mean to be far above? It means that everything else is under our authority. I also thought about Leviathan and the different stories about sea creatures and all of these different things. Because how about it could be the fact that sometimes, because, in that depth of the sea, there's this conversation about them not needing a lot of food. They're humongous. They're gigantic. They are giants. Whatever size the crustacean crab is on the regular level of sea depth, this thing is mega, okay? But these creatures don't need as much food because they don't have the metabolism for, digesting or for that food. And they live off of it. They said that they had caught this, what was that? It was one of the sea creatures. I don't remember which one it was, whether it looked like a jellyfish or something, but when they caught it, it survived for 5 years without food. 5 years, no food. Okay. And so it talked about the metabolism and how they eat this ocean snow. In other words, food that falls down further down on that space, where there's a lot of those creatures on that other level above that are constantly, preying against all the other. There are a lot of predators, and they're eating. Every predator is eating what it preys against, right? But it made me think of this as well. It made me think of this as well. The difference between church industrial complex and the kingdom is that church industrial complex mindset is we got to keep eating, keep eating, keep eating, keep eating, and doing nothing. But on the level of deep sea, that depth, then I don't need as much to eat because I'm just functioning. I'm just able to function without just continuing to consume. Just the need to keep consuming because it's nothing happening but just consuming. Now, what tickled me was one of those particular deep sea creatures. It said that it would consume until it can't even move. I thought that was hilarious because it made me think of, how the church industrial complex operates. Because we got a lot of people consuming, but then they get to the place where they can't move. So you're eating all this food, but you're not moving on nothing. You understand what I'm saying? And the Father's calling us to that depth because he wants to make us greater. He wants to make us bigger than the problems that we're seeing, bigger than the problems that we're having, because we were born to be a solution. We've been talking about this. The game has to be played differently in this season. Been taking the word of Yah, whatever he's given you, and beginning to imagine that or see it through your divine imagination, to begin to identify with the images that he's releasing so that you can say, okay, this is how I need to move. This is where I need to be. This is how I need to position myself. Holy Spirit will lead and guide us into all the truth if we want to receive it, if we want to hear it. He won't force us into anything. My brother was talking about the frustrations of leadership. It is a very frustrating place at times when you are releasing something and giving, and there's not even a reciprocal giving there on any level. And then people acting like they just don't have it. Like you like having to keep rehearsing. And by now, Paul said you ought to be teachers, but you're having to keep being fed, So that leads us to this spiritual animation versus flesh animation, because we talked about the fact that there is this mannerism, these learned manners, these learned actions, so a lot of people have learned the actions of spirituality, learned the actions of certain things, but they are not embodying those things. So what the Father's really dealing with in this season is from the inside out. The kingdom deals with inside out. It doesn't deal with outside in, it deals with inside out. What are we actually related to? What are we embodying, and what's being released as a result of what we embody? Because every act is a proof of the animation that who's animating us. Are we spiritually animated or are we flesh animated? Because the religious spirit is being exposed on every level in this season. We've been talking about it for years. We've prayed into this as the Holy Spirit gave us to pray into it. And this is the hour of the manifestation. We're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it, this manifestation of all that was prophesied over the past 5 to 6 years. But you know what's funny about that? When I say over the past 5 to 6 years, that was a decade ago. We're in a new decade. We're into a new, that was in the last decade. What we were given to do was for this decade, but we were given it in the last decade. We're in a whole new decade. That's amazing to me. Just thinking about how time moves. I'm laughing about it because my granddaughter, this morning, she said, just one more minute. Just a little funny thing. One more minute instead of minute, like she's a baby. One more minute. And so I gave her a minute and a half. And so when she realized that the minute and a half I gave her, she said, it went by too fast. We were just at the, and I said, that's what time looks like, though. But a lot of times we're not counting or measuring We don't have the metrics for what time really looks like until we have those moments where something moves really quickly. And we're like, that moved really quickly. So think about that. What do you want to see in the next 5 years? How do you see yourself? Where are you? What are you doing? You know, what's going on in your life? What is manifested? What are you thinking of life like this? Because we have these imitations of mannerisms and spiritual gestures that don't denote operation from the divine mechanism of the Spirit of Yah. We got to break the cycle of these imitation mannerisms and spiritual gestures to get to the truth of the spiritual animation that the Father's calling us into. Why? Well, okay, this is what he told me to ask. This is what he told me to ask. So I'm going to ask you this, and we're coming back to this thing. I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask you this. Hold on one second. Let me get my thing back up here. Let me get it back up. Hey, brother, I see you back in the room. Let me get it back up. He told me to ask you this. This is just, I want you to envision this. I want you to think of the worst case scenario that you could be in right now. This sounds wild, don't it? But go with me. I want you to think of the worst case scenario that you could be in right now. I know you're frustrated about where you're at. I know you feel some kind of way, but what is the worst case scenario that you can be in right now? I mean, what is the absolute worst condition you could be in right now? Think about that for a minute. And you say, why? I'm glad you asked. Because you need to raise an argument in the spirit against that. A standard that declares the opposite. See, there's a way to see this thing. And brother, I think you asked this question earlier. How do we get them to this place? The Father gave me this position. He said, you need to have an argument against the thing, you know, the very worst case scenario, because you're complaining about where you are. But think of the worst case scenario that it could be right now. What is the worst condition, absolute worst condition you could be in, and the absolute worst position you could be in right now? Because you need to raise an argument against it. And when you begin to raise that argument, you're raising a standard that declares the opposite of it, not just by your words, but by the works that come out of that argument. Is that understood? Are you guys understanding what I'm saying? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? There's a work that becomes the argument against what could be the worst case scenario, which takes you out of the mindset of where you are and the frustration of where you are, because the worst case scenario is not where you are. But because you raise the argument against the worst case scenario, a position, worst case scenario, worst condition, then now you're going after the enemy that desires to put you in a space, because he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. He's not coming to play. So where you at now that you're complaining about or frustrated about, it could be absolutely worse than that space. So if you raise the argument against, the spiritual argument against what is the worst condition, worst position, worst case scenario, then you're going to attack life differently. You're going to see it from a different position. And you're going to ask Holy Spirit, you're going to seek to find what it is that you need to be doing, how it is that you need to be doing it, how it is that you need to emote to the things that are going on around you in the moment, right? The position that you need to embody now in the space that is frustrating. All of that. It's absolutely important, because what's been happening with the children of Yah, because we've had such trauma, we've had such issue, and these things have had to keep coming back up so that we can deal with the issue and the trauma, it's caused the spiritual inflammation. Like, what do you mean spiritual inflammation? Well, you know, inflammation is the only disease that exists. It just manifests itself in different forms. And spiritual inflammation is the same. It's the only spiritual disease that exists. It just has many manifestations. Many manifestations. Brother, come on back in here, because I've been talking for a minute.
Well, well, I'm glad to be back. And I don't know what was happening. I was texting you and wasn't getting through. However, thank y'all for his faithful people who is concerned to get in touch with me. I thank y'all for that.
Yes.
Speaking of the last thing that you were saying, um, kind of touched. I don't know everything you were saying, but I know the last thing you touched on about spiritual information. And I think I mentioned to you that me coming back to back home from Michigan, and my body been doing a lot of detoxing, and y'all began to deal with me about inflammation, and um, and so y'all says no, inflammation comes because there's something there, and now you know that's there. You got to get rid of this inflammation because it started from someplace, and you know exactly where it started from. So now you got to deal with the inflammation because inflammation physically brings on a lot of things. And so, as you mentioned, spiritual inflammation, the same as physical inflammation. And so, and I think I shared with you, I had to repent, because I,
Got off course.
I, be, I got off course in doing what I know that's necessary to stay strong in an environment that I no longer live in. But I began to adapt to the environment,
Mm,
and my body when I travel back home, the body says, now you're gonna have to deal with this. You're gonna have to deal with this because now you feel pain in places that you haven't felt pain in a long time. And so now, I had to deal with the detox, all the mucus and all that come out. You know, I'm like, okay, this is what has to be done. So, so when I left off, when you the last thing I heard you was talking about spiritual information, and I was saying to
absolutely. And that
myself, okay,
spiritual detox is so important.
yes it
Mhm.
is, yes it is.
We got to
That
detox.
spiritual,
And the
yeah,
Holy Spirit's
and
going to bring
this,
it up. He's going to bring it up.
yeah, yes indeed. And so it's just that being purged or that detoxing of spiritual information, it's just it hurts. It don't feel good. It's pain. You feeling pain in different areas of your body, your soul, that spiritual inflammation, and and then we find ourselves. The good thing, y'all, is these things are happening and showing us where we're at, and said you cannot get off course because where I'm taking you, you can't take not one chance to because what the enemy desire to come in at any point. That enemy is knocking at your door. The enemy is crouching, knocking at your door, waiting for an opportunity to come in.
That's what he
And
is.
we dealing with a lot of spiritual inflammation
Yes.
of the mind, not only physical, but the spiritual mind.
Yes.
And so these things are happening. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I come back into to hear you saying spiritual information. That's oh Father.
Absolutely. I implore you guys to go and begin to look at some of the things that happened in the second month because this is where we are. We're in the second month. Uh, Noah's Ark lands on the mountains of Ararat in the second month. So anytime you see that second month, you're going to see begin to see a shift. You're going to begin to see a new beginning. You're going to begin to see something starting at a fresh space to begin to bloom into something new. And so it's just to watch and to expect in this moment as I'm looking at all the shifts and all this. I have a great expectation that the Father's going to do exactly what He said. And my expectation is higher because He's repositioned me. He's repositioned how I see the thing that He's spoken of, because there are actually two sides to the miraculous. A lot of people don't think about this. There are two sides. There is actually a practical world function. There's actually a natural side of the miraculous. And then there's a supernal world and its functions that are another part of that. Ooh, I got people calling me. I wish I knew how to, let me see. We got all kinds of sides. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. And so both of those operate. They operate together because it's something that you got to do. Now think of all the miracles that took place in the scripture. If you think of positioning, a natural positioning that man had to take in order to step into that miraculous space. You have to worry about the supernal side of it, but he had to worry about the natural side as how they were positioned, how that person was positioned, determine how that supernal operation affected them or did not affect them. You understand what I'm saying? There was a question of some that did not believe. He said, so what if they don't believe? He talked about things being mixed with faith. Because if it's not mixed with faith, and we talk, what is the faith? What is it mixed with faith and the word? What is it mixed with? What does it mean to be mixed with faith and the word? Faith in what? Not faith in the thing, but faith in the God of the thing. Faith in the Father. Our faith should be there. The stuff is what he possesses already. Our faith should be in him and in the word that he released to us so that we are able to receive what it is that he has declared. There were some that the message of the good news had been preached to, as well as to others. But it says in Hebrews 4:2, but the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith. And those who heard it, they heard it, but not everybody received it and mixed it with faith to receive the manifestation of it. So we got a lot of people who are able to manifest all kinds of things. And so why am I mentioning this? Because this is important for you to understand that can you manifest things? Absolutely. But by what spirit are you manifesting? You know, sure, you can manifest a lot of things, but by what operating system? You know, that's very important to identify how you are manifesting. You know, we see the monks and we see all these other people, they understand the principles of some things, and that's how they got into the space that they're in, where they're unbothered by things and all, because they've reached a pinnacle of peace, but it's a natural space. Just like you can identify with people that have morals, but morals are not enough. Morals don't equal holiness. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, ma'am. Just a few more minutes. Morals don't equal holiness. So it's without holiness, no man can see. Yeah. It's not just a moral issue. Well, I don't do this and I don't do that. And he's saying, listen, that religious identity of things is done away with, because now the black sheep are rising. Now the miraculous is going to be seen in a different way. It's not that the black sheep have not been operating in the miraculous. We have, but just in different measures of it. Because the Father doesn't release his pearls to swine. He doesn't just release his secrets. He doesn't just reveal everything about him to people that don't care about that. But there are spaces. And so this is why the black sheep are rising now, because there is an assigned space. There is a determined destination for the sons to really express all that they are. All of who Yah made them is for the purpose of answering the issues that mankind has. But it's not the issues of all of mankind. It's the issues of the space that he's sending us to. And it's so important. Here's the thing. There are things he's calling you to do that you don't know how to do yet. But here's the thing. You didn't know how to count before you could count. So you don't have to fear what you don't know. I told the Father I needed a sewing machine. I haven't had a sewing machine in a long time. But I have all these images, and my children keep telling me, you need to start drawing your dresses again, Ma. And it was in my heart already to release a line and do all these things really soon. And So I asked him for a sewing machine. I don't remember. I remember I was having a problem with identifying how to put the bobbin in, but that's the last thing I remember about the sewing machine. I did sew a few things, but this is what I said. I said I need a sewing machine. So I was talking to somebody one day, somebody that I've been a blessing to, and they said something, and I said, I need a sewing machine because and they said, you know what? I just picked up my sewing machine from the repairman, and it's an old one. It's a Montgomery Wards. I don't know if you guys have Montgomery Wards where you are, but whatever your major department store was in the area that you live in is kind of like that, and it's a metal one, so it's not plastic. So this is old school. And they were like, come pick it up whenever you get ready. So I said, okay, Father, I asked for a sewing machine, I asked for a serger and an embroiderer. And guess what? I don't know how to use any of them off the cuff, off the top of my head right now, but all of it because I didn't know how to use Photoshop till I got it. I didn't even know nothing about Photoshop before I became a graphic designer, but somebody heard the Holy Spirit say, give that program to her. And I've been using it for several decades now. I've been using it, okay, but didn't know anything about it. But because it was something that was for me, he gave me the grace for it. So I'm telling you, don't be afraid in this season of the things that the Father is calling you to, because you didn't know how to work half the things you do now until you viewed it, you saw it as a baby. You didn't know how to walk, you didn't know how to talk, you didn't know how to do any of that stuff, but you were in the environment where you were watching it being done. And because you were watching it being done, you began to do it. So it's no fear, okay? Understand that the operating system is only going to operate based on the current settings. So what the Father is doing, he's desiring to change the current settings. What is the setting? What is your reality set to? What game are you playing? What are the set of expectations? All of this is so important. He's got to restore hope to your mouth. He's got to restore hope to the opening and the birthing for manifestation. It's got to be restored. You know, we've been saying something completely different. Don't do that, baby. We've been saying a thing differently for a while because, like I said, of the trauma. So some things have set in as habits. And now the Father said, no, you got to change your habits because you got to change your mind. And as you are, this is a feedback that the Father is doing something. That's how I took the sewing machine. Oh, that's an indicator of something. Many things around me, that's an indicator of some things, because the future is about your victory. You got to align. You got to be aligned for the assignment. And that's what the fire has been about. But Father is also making you fireproof because it's a multi-dimensional reality that you're coming into. So this proverbial fire is the journey to becoming another man. So we were talking about Saul in the beginning, right? The only way he became another man was because he followed the instructions, the oracle, the prophetic instructions that were given him to go to that particular space and to do this particular things. And then he began to prophesy along with the prophets. He became another man. We all got a burning bush. We've all got something that the Father's calling us to. But there are environments for your identity. Okay? We've heard a lot about atmosphere shift, being atmosphere shifters and all of these different things. But what you got to realize that there are some prerequisites before you become an atmosphere changer. It's not just because you say you believe that you're an atmosphere changer. No. Your internal atmosphere has to be changed in order for you to change atmospheres. And changing atmospheres is not every atmosphere, because brother said it earlier, and this is just a statement of fact. Everybody don't want to be delivered. Everybody don't want to be saved. Do you know that the Father literally took the Mashiach out of the town that he was in and took him into the spaces that he took him into so he could express the image of Yah, because in that space people didn't believe enough to receive from him. So everybody don't want to be saved. Everybody don't want to be delivered, right? So that's not the atmosphere shifter thing don't work in every environment, because you're not called to every environment. But the environment that you have been designed for, you're going to shift that atmosphere. And it's going to be because you stepped into the identity of who Yah is in you and who he's calling you to be. So you begin to embody whatever he's expressing in the moment. You're not worried about what's on down the line. No, what am I saying now? What are you obedient to now? Right? And once you identify with that obedience, you're moving to the next thing. And it becomes progressively greater and greater. Brother, say something.
Hallelujah. My, oh my, oh my.
Hallelujah.
Oh my. That's two areas that that stood out. And first, when he was talking earlier, and it was, what the thought came into my mind when he was talking about it, um, dealing with people manifesting things, groups manifesting things. And has been a thought, a question I proposed, and it's something that when you look at the church and that their prayers are always this that they're speaking negative. The prayers is negative, and they're speaking, and their prayers are coming to pass. A lot of these negative things are coming to pass. And I share with people, I said, do you not realize that most time people in the church today don't realize that what you do say or pray about do come to pass? And people be like, what? Yes. Because, for instance, not tell people, for an example, well, I said, let's use faith now. Don't go back and bring from the back to your present, and don't go to your future, but you miss the very now. Because a lot of times you miss the very now of things because you've gone back, and that back is your present, or you've gone too far. So people say, oh, I'm not going to have no money. How you know? And so I'm saying, we'll hear what you just said. You're right now, 10 days from now, you say you're not going to have no money. And so 10 days that come, 10 days that come, then you don't have no money. That was a prayer that was answered. You manifest that, but it's a prayer. You spoke it.
My,
And
my.
we see so many people that does that. And because this, I said, so we get into the kingdom of Yah. What the kingdom of Yah doesn't speak like that, because you talk about faith. And so the kingdom of Yah, the black sheep, our language is of a kingdom. And like you were saying, listen, this is a whole different language that we got to begin to talk. It's so distinctive because many people in Christendom in the church, their prayers, everything they pray about, talk about, it come to pass. They have created an environment of nothing. What they created comes to pass. They talk about this cancer there, this and that and that. Okay, well, that's what you're saying. It's there. People tell me, I told you. See what happened? It's okay. Well, I'm not there like that. My language is totally different.
Right.
Yeah, so it was just interesting on that point that many folks have these prayers, that conversations
Mm-hmm.
that comes to pass, that they have, nothing goes right, all this is going wrong, what have you. And
Mm-hmm.
so, so now, yeah, we see it come. You brought it to, you brought it forth. And the second thing I was just going to say is that the latter part, what you were sharing with um, about where we at, and I just want to read, and I'm gonna be quiet after that. Revelations chapter 11
Yes.
and verse 3. Hmm. And I will give to my two witnesses
Yes.
to perform their prophetic offices,
Mhm.
and they will foretell events about the 3.5 years, those cast about in darkness. These are, as it were, the two olive trees, and as it were, the two lamps of the seven lamps stand, ministering for the Father in the earth. And if any among them
Hmm.
determines in his mind to commit sin, and every word of Yahweh, the law and the prophet, like the two-edged sword of fire,
Hmm.
hmm,
Yes.
proceeds out of the mouth of the spokesman of them,
Mm. Mm-mm.
and he devours their enemies. And if any among them shall continue to commit sin
Mm-hmm.
in this manner,
Mm-hmm.
it is binding for him to be destroyed. Verse 6. For
My,
these
my, my.
hold Yahweh's authority to shut the heavens in order that rainfall does not rain in the days of their prediction. And Yahweh's authority they have over the water to turn them into blood and to strike the earth with any plague, every plague, as often as provided they shall will. This is what I see
My, my.
for us today. The black sheep, the power, the fire of those two that's in our mouths, the spirit and truth, the true worshipers that makes the difference that Yah is using in this hour, in this time of fire. Our language will cause. He gives us the authority to shut things down. He
Yes,
gives
sir.
us the authority to release every plague as often as provided they shall wield. We have authority to release plague in the earth.
Yes, sir.
Verse 7. And when they have finished the evidence written about them completely performing their testimony concerning future events, the beast, the same which ascended out of the abyss, he will make war with them, and he will overcome them, and he will kill them. The spirit, try to kill the spirit and truth, the two witnesses.
Yeah.
Verse 8. But the body of believers, the house of Yahweh, the one seed of the two witnesses goes into the streets of the great
Mm.
cities, which is
Yes.
spiritual called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Messiah was sacrificed.
Come on now.
And they take out the people, the tribes, the tongues, the nations into the house of Yahweh, turning them to Yahweh for these 3.5 years, because they will not allow this body of believers, of the two witnesses, to be placed in the tomb. We're not going to let it happen. You might try to kill the spirit, but it's the body of us.
Come on.
Not
Can't be
you
done.
not you can't take it away.
Huh.
Okay, and then those who resided throughout the earth will reserve Yahweh's feast and their reverence of Yahweh because of them, for they will have a mind to understand and to do what is right, and Yahweh's tithes and offering will be restored. Oh my goodness.
Oh my.
Because these two prophets proclaim the every word of Yahweh, the law and the prophet, to
Yeah.
those residing throughout the earth.
Yes. Yes, sir. This is where we are, brother.
Yes, ma'am.
This is where we are, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the shift, um, and I'm excited about the
I am
word of
so
God that
humble.
came out of the mouth of us
Mm,
years ago. You know, we're at that gate. We're at that opening, and now it's time
mhm,
to awake, to ascend, and claim what the Father has already declared. And that began with our identity. You know, allowing that
mhm,
fire to prove, to ascend to that proverbial mountain so that we become the men and women
mm,
that Yah is
mm,
actually
mm.
looking for in this hour. It's going to be a mighty time,
Ha- Hallelujah.
mighty time.
I,
I love you
I am
guys.
so humble.
Go ahead,
Mhm.
brother. What'd you get ready to say?
I said, I'm so humble
Me too.
um, to be used by Yah,
Me too.
that we are in this time to not exploit it, but just be, and all those things that he gonna use us in what he's doing now. I'm just I'm
Absolutely.
humble.
I'm
I
humble,
am.
brother. I'm humble. Listen, I love you all. We appreciate you being here with us tonight. We have much more to talk about, but guess what? We're going to have to let you go. Time restraints and all that good stuff are happening now. But listen, if you desire to give to ministry, you guys know how to find me. We'll put the way that you can give in the chat. And you help us by your giving to continue to do these things. You don't know what it takes to do this if you've never done it before. You have no clue what it takes to do this if you've never done it before. For those of you
Mhm,
who actually do this, you know that it requires some things, and it requires things really in order to stay consistent in these things. So some of the time, I just don't have the energy or sometimes the resources to continue to do things on my own. If I got to do it by myself, then you might not see me as much. But if I have some backing, then you might see me a little more often. But listen, this is a time that we've got to come together. We're definitely going to look into coming together face to face. So one of my plans is for this next Moed to be a face to face Moed, and we'll see some things in between there. But I'm excited about this year, and I'm excited about what the Father wants to do. We've just stepped into the year. We're only in the second month, according to the scripture, of our year, of our new year. So I'm
mhm.
excited about the next 10 months as it pertains to what the kingdom desires to do. And listen, we love you to life. We love you much. May the spirit of Yah rest upon the people of Yah tonight in a way that he's never rested before, so that you'll experience some things that you've never experienced before and really identify that you've been called for purpose and called for a time such as this. This is the reason for your purpose. It's the purpose of your person. So I'm excited about that. Listen, stay blessed. We will see you soon. And now they about to start getting rowdy. It's past bedtime. We're gonna get out of here. Listen, peace to your house. The body is not a me thing, it's a we thing. Brother, what did you want to say?
I love you guys forever, and let the rest of this holy evening enjoy all you guys.
That's it. We'll see you soon. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, shalom.